Hi everybody, and this is the next video of one of the things that I've acquired but just haven't had time to share. So about 15 years ago I had one of these which I got back in the early 90s. I actually sent off for it and I got a copy that was addressed to me, complete in the cardboard sort of envelope pack that it came in, and with the sort of rather nice sort of printed in glossy RS Cosworth 4x4 finish. And it's basically a brochure for the Sierra Sapphire Cosworth 4x4. Now, about 15 years ago I stupidly got rid of it and I regretted it. So I went online a couple of months back and purchased a new one. Funny enough, after the NEC restoration show, because we had a two-wheel drive Cosy Saph on the stand, and I've always liked them. So I thought I'd treat myself back to the Brochure again, because, as I say, I stupidly got rid of it. It's a really nice affair because it's a proper hardback brochure, complete with the embossed glossy RS Cosworth 4x4 logos you can see there. There's an insert which covers the financial options that were available at the time from Ford. Ford, I think, was one of the first companies that actually offered these financial options. In fact, I too received a personalised letter like this. I'll be honest with you, it may have been addressed to my dad, because I can't remember if it asked for the age when you sent off for it or not, but yeah, you got this personalised letter, and you then had obviously the list of options that were available, and Ford offered at the time this three option arrangement, and I think they were one of the first companies to actually do this. Now, in some ways this was to their detriment, because all of the major manufacturers actually caught on to this and started producing similar options. And you could argue that it's one of the reasons why the German manufacturers like BMW, Audi and Mercedes suddenly gained so much traction during the 90s, because they started themselves to offer compelling financial arrangements and deals, meaning that cars that were sort of previously out of the sort of grasp of your average buyer were now within the realms of owning. I think also the sort of increase in level of equipment that they provided as standard had something to do with it, and also that people perceived them to be sort of a cut above quoted ordinary manufacturers like Ford or Vauxhall. I use the term quoted ordinary because both Ford and Vauxhall/Opel are, and certainly were and still are, very viable options to the more premium marques. Premium doesn't necessarily mean an increase in quality. Just take a look at my XJ40 or evidence of that. But anyway, you had the single sort of option of single-sided bit of financial options. And then you actually came on to the brochure itself. Now, this was something I always liked. You had this sort of almost tracing paper-like thing with a copy of the sort of, is that a rally or touring car? I can't remember now. I think that may have been possibly a rally car. Overlaid, or overlaying, the production version. And yeah, it was just a very nice sort of glossy brochure, going big on the sort of sported achievements of the various Cosworths, the whole sort of win on Sunday, sell on Monday mentality that Ford very much had at the time, and was unbelievably successful for them. You then have information about the car, CD rating of just 0.32, which is very good actually for the time. 0 to 60 was 6.6 seconds, again very good for the time, with a standing quarter of 14.3 seconds, which again, these are big figures. This is basically supercar performance, or supercar performance of the time, in a family saloon. And there really was only one other manufacturer that achieved something of this sort of nature, and that was Vauxhall with the Carlton GSI, you could argue, 3 litre GSI 24 valve, and even more so with the Lotus Carlton, which was a different sort of beast altogether. But again, that was effectively a family saloon capable of time-bending performance. But in retrospect, it's a good-looking car. And I'll probably be lynched for this, I actually prefer the Sapphire to the hatch for a number of reasons. One, more modern treatment around the doors. You don't have that separate drip rail that you had on the hatchback. It's just, it suits the jelly mould shape better. It sort of just looks more balanced, I would say. It's just a more balanced shape on the whole. The interior was nicely spec'd as well. I'm not sure if these had the option of air conditioning or not. But you certainly got option of leather Recaros, CD player as an option. That may have been standard, I can't remember. Heated front windscreen, very much a Ford thing for a number of years. Height and reach adjustable steering wheel, which is very good. Really, it was a very ergonomic car for its time. You couldn't really go wrong with the driving position in a Sierra. Most people would be able to fit and get comfortable. The 4x4 side of it was interesting though. You had lesser models in the Ford Sierra range that would come with the 4x4 option. I say lesser models because they were still pretty high spec, such as the 2.8 and 2.9 V6s. And near the end of production, because they probably had to use up the various drivetrains, you also got the option to have the 4x4 in higher spec 2 litre DOHC models. So you could get a 2 litre gear with 4x4. Very similar system to this one actually, not really sort of all that much difference. Obviously, big thing about this, it was turbocharged. You had the Cosworth cylinder head, and on the 4x4s, I think they came with a 200 block. The two-wheel drive ones were 205 blocks, although there are some with 200 blocks out there. The 200 block is apparently stronger. 205 is still strong, but the 200 is the one that you want if you want to make big power, so I've read. Speaking of power, you've got a nice little bit here about the various specifications. Technical specs, quite a low compression ratio, but this was sort of the turbocharging was not in its infancy, but turbocharging was not as widespread as it is now. And a little bit about the power that it generates. Not big numbers by today's standards, admittedly, but huge for the time when you consider that, say, a standard 2 litre Pinto EFI Sierra was developing 115 brake horsepower. Bit of performance information there, 150 mph top speed, still good for now actually, and then obviously gear ratios as well. And because that weird tracing paper thing is actually two-sided, you've got some of the other sort of bits and pieces as regards specifications actually on the second half of that sort of weird grease paper style tracing paper thing. Let's see if there are any options. So factory fitted optional extras, leather trim, CD, well, leather trim and additional in-car entertainment. No air conditioning, which is, I guess, not surprising. But then again, it was sort of I guess really sort of a limited production run model. If you have to introduce air conditioning, you've then got to run additional tests to make sure that, you know, the engine will perform when the air conditioning provides or sort of puts additional load on the engine, that it doesn't overheat whilst under load, all of that sort of stuff. Whereas other models within the range have been sort of well developed, so that air conditioning is a viable option. Also, they produce less power, but there's a number of factors involved which would mean that a manufacturer would choose not to specify aircon as an option, which I find odd on a car of this calibre. But the thing you have to remember, in the early 90s, very rarely did you get a car with air conditioning. You only really had air conditioning on top of the range models, and if you were very, very lucky, you might find it on some lower range models as well. A good example is actually Austin Rover, or Austin Morris at the time, offered air conditioning as a unipart fit extra for the Mini Metro all the way back in 1980. And if I remember rightly, it was something like, the part number was something like GUL 3000 or GLE 3000. It was a unipart part number, and you basically got a box with a compressor, evaporator, condenser and an underdash fan unit, which you would then fit or have fitted. You'd have it gassed, and your 1 litre or 1.3 litre, so 998cc or 1275cc Austin Mini Metro would have aircon, which is a bizarre thing. There's only one person that I've heard of that actually has a Mini Metro with air conditioning, and that is the esteemed Colin Cork, Reverend for Longbridge, who's a very big British Leyland car nut. Has many various different models, but he does have, from what he told me, a Mini Metro with aircon and an actual complete kit available as well. Ford did actually offer air conditioning throughout the 80s as an optional extra on the Sierra from, I think, GL grade and above. High spec Granadas had it. I think it was an option on lower spec models as well, but it was not an option that was commonly ticked because it was very expensive, and the public image perceived of air conditioning was, oh, we don't need that for the 2 days a year that we have where it's really hot. People didn't understand that it was useful all year round. But as time has gone on, sort of the buying public have demanded more and more standard options. Aircon has become pretty much standardised across almost every car from, I sort of remember first starting to see it in the mid to late 90s, so sort of around 95 onwards. I mean, even my K11 Micro's got aircon, and that's just, you know, that's saying something. My Jag doesn't, which was unusual, but that was partly because the kits were made by Delair, and there was a shortage at the time when the XJ40 went into production. So mine came with a sunroof, but not air conditioning. But you could actually get a complete kit fitted at a dealer if you so desired. Anyway, that is me waffling. That's the end of this particular video. If you have found this interesting, don't forget to hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Take care. Thanks a lot.